Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott Lacy. I am a small business consultant with the ASBTDC at Northwest Arkansas at the University of Fayetteville. I've been here for a couple of years and I'm really excited to see everybody here today. Thank you so much for joining in. The ASBTDC is a nonprofit grant-funded organization that's a part of the nationwide network of small business and technology development centers. And our mandate by our grant funding agencies is to help small business owners and aspiring small business owners start and grow their businesses through financial consulting. And that usually looks like doing these webinars, doing some basic education type stuff for all of you to help you understand and get a grasp of the basics of small business, and then also doing one-on-one consulting, helping you each individually to be able to improve your businesses, whether that's through finance and accounting or marketing, strategy, acquiring loans, dealing with human resources issues, technology issues, any and all of the above. We're here to coach and to help as much as we possibly can. We are funded by the University of Arkansas. I'm a University of Arkansas employee, and I work in the Department of Economic Development up here, and we're a part of the public-facing side of the university. As part of the university's land grant initiative or land grant status, they are required to and also happy to be able to give back to the community through some public-facing services like the ASBTDC. We're also funded by the SBA, as you'll see down there in the lower left. We're powered by the SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration, and we also receive funding from the Northwest Arkansas Council and the Walton Family Foundation. And they have graciously agreed to help us with funding, so long as we're going out and just helping develop the local economy and the local community through business development. And all of our services are cost-free because of those grants. Like I said a minute ago, my name is Scott, and there is our phone number for the center. If you ever have any questions, that phone number goes to our receptionist, and then she can get you in touch with the right consultant. There's our website there as well with all of our social media pages. And we post quite a bit on social media with just tips and updates and scheduling and webinars if you want to go check that out. My name is Scott. Like I said a minute ago, I used to be a small business owner, owned a small business with my wife. We wholesaled, basically, if you know about, Bath and Body Works, we sold those kind of products to different spa companies throughout the country a while back. And then due to the pandemic, most of that got shut down for a while. So that, hurt us kind of bad. And so we wound up shutting that down, fairly recently, actually. But we had that for about 6 years. I did really, really well until the pandemic. Sorry to see it go, but I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now. My background has always been in small business finance. My wife was always the marketing and sales and branding side of things. I've always been more on the compliance and finance side of things, and it worked out really, really well. I'm currently in the middle of an MBA program, focusing on finance there as well, and spend most of my days helping small business owners get a better grasp on their finances and in helping them get capital and cash to be able to grow or start their businesses. And there is my email down there at the bottom or in the middle of the page. That's sl072@uark.edu. If you just want to shoot me an email, we can get together and I'll send you back my calendar link so you can schedule an appointment. And I would love to meet with you one-on-one. So today's webinar is in our small business financial management series, and it's just a basic introduction to bookkeeping and accounting. All right, so we're just going to start real basic. What are bookkeeping and accounting? The most simple way that I can put it is bookkeeping and accounting are history. They are the roles of the company that record the history of your company. They record everything that has happened previously in the company using accounting, using bookkeeping practices, using numbers to record all of those transactions and to record the changes in value. And then they present those recordings and transactions and changes in value in the history book, which we refer to as the three financial statements of a business: the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, and the P&L, the profit and loss statement, also known as the income statement. So when you think about bookkeeping and accounting, this is really what they are. They're the historians of the business. It's their job to record the history of the business. So why do we need bookkeeping and accounting? Well, the first reason is for decision making. We look at the history of the business, the historical performance of the business in order to be able to make a better assessment or a better judgment about what decisions we should make moving forward in the future. Should we go left? Should we go right? Should we go up? Should we go down? Should we pause? Should we even keep moving? What should we do? The entire company relies on the history books that bookkeeping and accounting develop in order to help small business owners, bankers, investors, all of the stakeholders in an organization to make decisions. So bookkeeping and accounting is really important. The next reason is for legal compliance and also legal compliance with the IRS and with the Securities Exchange Commission, but also for the owner's protection as well. I'm wondering how many of you guys know who this guy is. Bernie Madoff. He was in the news a while back for committing fraud. Basically, was he not basically he was participating or running a Ponzi scheme, and he got caught. And this cartoon to me is kind of funny. It says, I was given a choice down at the bottom, 150 years in jail or 150 minutes in a back alley with my investors. So what does that mean? Well, it means that he would rather spend time in jail than in a back alley with his investors because he stole all of his investors' money, and they probably would not do very pleasant things to him if they caught him alone in a back alley. That is for sure. So why do I say that? Why do I bring this up? Well, it's for two reasons. It's that compliance and protection there you see at the top. It's why we need bookkeeping and accounting. You need compliance because the IRS and the Securities and Exchange Commission, if you're selling securities to other people through your business, you need to keep accurate books and you need to have good accounting in order to make sure that your company is complying with federal and state law and Securities and Exchange Commission law. Because if you don't, there is a very good chance that you could wind up in jail or at the very least, paying such substantial fines. And the other reason is to protect yourself, especially if you have investors, especially if they're friends and family, but even if they are non-friends and family who are investing in your business like a bank or an investor. Because oftentimes, because you have their money, people's money is often one of their most prized possessions. And so they're going to be, looking at you, quite closely to make sure that you're spending their money in accordance with the agreement that you had or in the best way that they think that you should. And if you don't have good books, if you don't have good history books to show them, look, here's how I've been spending your money, and here's how I've been spending your money well in order to make money, then they could potentially sue you, or you could lose that relationship somehow, or some other negative consequence might happen. So when you think about bookkeeping and accounting, don't just think about this, boring thing that's got to be done for your business so that you can make better decisions. That's not a really high ROI. Really think about it also in terms of it is a higher ROI because it's going to help me make great decisions, like we mentioned before, but it's also going to keep you out of hot water with the government. And it's also going to protect you from the bank, from investors or from friends and family if they ever begin to question how you're running your business. And so all of these things sort of come together to really show why bookkeeping and accounting are important because and I like to spend a lot of time here on the why because it's not fun for most people. Most people don't dream about becoming accountants one day. I love accounting and bookkeeping and the finance side of things because to me it's like a car engine, but most people don't sort of get to that place until they spent some time in the small business world. And so often getting entrepreneurs who are very, creative and motivated and high energy and to do these kinds of more mundane, repetitive type tasks, it's difficult. And so I find that helping people to understand why it's so important is genuinely really helpful in order to get people to do it on a regular basis and to keep up with it. And the two big reasons that we have to do bookkeeping and accounting are for, like I mentioned a minute ago, decision making to help you know which direction to go in your business and how fast to go in your business or how slow to go in your business, and then also for legal compliance and protection of yourself. Okay, now we're going to compare bookkeeping and accounting. We're going to sort of define the two because you hear those two words a lot. They're not necessarily interchangeable. There are some key differences. And so I'm just going to lay out a brief introduction to about how you can think about the difference between bookkeeping and accounting. So when you think about bookkeeping, the bookkeeper in the business or the bookkeeper at your accounting firm or the private independent bookkeeper that you might hire, you can think of them In the terms of a history book, as the scribe of the history book, they're really the one that is actually doing the recording or the writing of the history of your business. So they're the ones who are actually physically, writing the lines, writing the words, recording the transaction. So their job, as listed there, is to record the transaction, record the bills that are paid, sometimes through payroll, sometimes pay bills as well. You can also hire them to do that. Also to do the reconciliations at the end of the month, make sure the cash balances and everything in your bookkeeping software matches what's on your bank statements and your credit card statement. And then also to generate the financial report, which is the history book itself, the balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flow. So that's the bookkeeper. The accountant or the accounting side of the house can be thought of as the editor. So if you think of the bookkeeper as the scribe or the actual one who writes things, the accountant or the accounting side of the house can be thought of as the editor. They're the one who really sort of oversees everything, checks for accuracy, make sure that everything is organized in a way that's useful to the end user or to the end reader. They do things like ensure accuracy. They make sure that the product that's being delivered to the client is useful to the client in the most advantageous way possible. They're also included and often involved in advising the end user. So not just saying, "Hey, here's the information. It's accurate. I put it in the most useful form, possible to you. But here's also, I'm going to now advise you and explain to you what it means and potentially how you can use it, and sometimes even how you can make adjustments to your business." They also have a greater legal liability because they are often licensed as certified public accountants or CPAs, as we state there. And so they can be more involved in legal matters than a bookkeeper can. And they also do a lot with filing taxes and also giving tax advice, which bookkeepers sometimes they have general knowledge of the tax code and how to take advantage of different tax advantages and tax breaks that you can get. But accountants or CPAs specifically, that's actually one of their specialties that can even be an add-on service that you can pay them to do. But when you think about a bookkeeper and accountant, the bookkeeper is really the scribe. They're sort of the junior partner in the relationship, and the head accountant or the CPA, they can be thought of as the editor of the history book, who's really the senior person in that relationship and bears quite a bit more responsibility. So whereas you're probably going to be speaking to a bookkeeper on a regular basis, the accountant you might not see as often. And generally, not all bookkeepers are CPAs, but most CPAs do have the capacity to do some bookkeeping. So that's the difference between bookkeepers and accountants. And if you've got any additional questions about bookkeepers versus accountants, feel free to put that in the question and answer block. Okay. So next, I often find that understanding the finance department or the accounting department of a company or of an organization or of your small business or even just a checklist of what things need to be done is a little bit confusing. And so one of the things that has been most successful for me in helping people understand what needs to get done on a regular basis in their company is to show an organization chart of a financial department for a larger, more mature company. I do have a background in corporate finance, and so I've worked in this structure before. So I'm just going to give you two quick examples of the structure to sort of help you see how you might build out, if you ever become a very large company, what it might look like. But at the very least, all of the different job roles within your company that somebody's going to have to be fulfilling at least for a few hours a month. As you can see, this was developed by a man named Nicholas Boucher that I found through LinkedIn. There's some really good information on LinkedIn if you want to go over there and try to find some info on just finance, accounting, CFO work, that kind of thing. So at the top here, you see you've got the chief financial officer, and then down below, you've got all the roles that the chief financial officer of the company would oversee. And in small businesses, generally all of these roles, especially in the beginning, if you're the sole owner operator, are going to be occupied by you to a degree. And then as you grow, you'll begin to hire these people, but usually not until you get quite large. So under the CFO, you see on the left, you've got a controller. Another name for a controller is just chief accountant, is the best way that you can think about it. They're the senior accountant in the organization. And then below that, you've got accounting. And within accounting, you've got bookkeeping, and then you've also got, somebody who specializes in tax as well. And then on the other side of the house, which is the non-accounting bookkeeping side of the house, we call that FP&A. It's financial planning and analysis. And if you're looking at the controller and the FP&A there, the best way to think about the difference between these two is that the controller, they're the main person responsible for the history of the organization, making sure that the history of the organization in financial terms is recorded accurately. And then the FP&A side of the house, the financial planning and analysis side of the house, they're the ones that are all future forward looking. So they're analyzing all of the information that the accountants and the bookkeepers are developing and creating, and they're helping the CFO and the CEO plan for the future. So here's another organizational chart that's a little bit more detailed that I created just real quick. So you see you've got the CEO there at the top, and then the CFO, and right under the CEO, and then the CFO is responsible for the controller, the treasurer, and FP&A. So the controller, like I mentioned, they're like the head accountant. The treasurer, they're the one that manages all of the cash coming in and out of the business, which is a little bit different than the controller. They actually are managing cash to make sure the business has enough cash to pay its bills and to make the investments and the purchases that it needs to make. And then you've got the FP&A side over there on the far right, which is all the forward-looking, projecting side of the house. So today we're primarily spending time underneath the controller section of the business. So under the controller, who you can think of as the chief accounting officer or as the head accountant, you have the accounting staff, and then under the accounting staff, you have the bookkeepers, and then under the bookkeepers, you have the people that are actually writing the checks, and paying the bills and making sure that the customers are actually paying the company. They're often referred to as payables and receivables clerks, or just accounts payable, receivable, analyst or manager, that kind of thing. So we've got controllers, accountants, bookkeepers, payables, and receivables. So within an organization, this is where accounting and bookkeeping fit. They fit under the controller, under the CFO, and under the CEO, and their primary job is to record as accurately as possible and as timely as possible the history of the organization, and then present that history to the decision makers in the organization in the form of the balance sheet, the statement of cash flows, and the income statement, also known as the P&L. Okay. The whole company relies on the records that are created by the bookkeepers and the accountants in the accounting department. So the whole company relies on these two things. If bookkeeping and accounting aren't taken care of, then all of the decision makers of the company, the CEO, the banks, the investors, the family, all the managers of every department, then they don't have good information to base their decisions on for the company. And then the company is going to make decisions that aren't as good as they could be and could potentially be detrimental to the company because they don't have that financial information. So now the question is, now that we have a basic understanding of the differences between bookkeeping and accounting and what they are, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who owns a business or is thinking about owning a business, how do you get started? So first, I just want you to keep in mind, something is better than nothing. A lot of times I see entrepreneurs think about accounting and bookkeeping, and it's just completely overwhelming, or it's completely boring. It's usually one of the two, either overwhelming or boring. Sometimes they don't even see the value in it. And so nothing gets done. And for those that think it's boring or think it's overwhelming, please just keep in mind and just understand that something is better than nothing. Trying to do something to keep track of your bookkeeping and accounting, just to do basic record keeping, is much better than you not doing anything at all for a whole year and then panicking when tax time rolls around. It's going to stress you out, it's going to stress your accountant out, and it's going to be a whole lot more expensive for you to get your taxes done and to get your books caught up than it is if you'll just keep up with it month to month, even at just a basic level. So just remember, if it does feel overwhelming to you, or if it's not something that you want to do, just keep in mind that something is better than nothing. And I'm going to give you a bare minimum technique that you can use just to get started, especially if you're a really small business. So the first thing that you can do, is just make sure that you're maintaining records and you're paying your taxes. What does that mean? It just means make sure that you know where your bank statements are, and you know where your credit card statements are, and you have a rough idea of how much you're spending, and you're recording that somehow, somewhere, and that you have an understanding of where your money's going and where it's coming from. If you're spending a lot on the credit card, keep an eye on that balance. If you don't have a credit card, if you've got a loan, just understanding how much you're paying, and not just your bank statements and your credit card statements, but also uh, your point of sale system statements. So if you're using when people are paying you, are they paying you in cash? Are they paying you through Square, through Shopify? Are they writing you checks? Is it ACH? How are they paying you? And then making sure that you've got a method to regularly see and understand and record the amount of money that you have coming in through sales. So understanding and being able to see on a regular basis what you've got coming in through sales, and then what your bank account looks like, and then also what you're putting on your credit card. And if you'll just do those three things, you'll be ahead of the game as far as a new business goes. If you're a mature business, or if you've been around for a while, we're hoping that we're going to get you to the next step on that. So a really simple way to maintain records is just through Google Sheets. I'm going to show you an example here in a minute of a Google Sheet that you can use. It's really, really simple. Excuse me. So the next thing that you can do is hire a bookkeeper. It's not as hard as it may seem, and sometimes you can get a really good price, and I can talk you through how to do that. Um, uh, and if you want to try to keep track of your books on your own, there is a free service, a free bookkeeping service out there called Wave that you can use. And then lastly, there is also QuickBooks. And I want you to know also the ASBTDC is here as a resource to help you get started as well. So I would say probably in this order, other than number 6 being ASBTDC, I'd probably like to be your first phone call, to be honest with you. But as far as, if you're new or you're small, up to if you're growing and large, this would be the order that I would go in. Just start making sure you're maintaining your records and paying your taxes. I forgot to go over paying your taxes there. You're going to have taxes due, potentially every month if you've got goods that you have to charge sales tax for, but typically at least every quarter if you're a sole proprietor, or you're an owner operator of an LLC, just paying your quarterly estimated income tax. And you've also a lot of times got property taxes for a business, which are due once a year. You've got your franchise tax, which is due, I believe, May 1st of every year. And then, of course, every year you're going to have to pay income tax as well, at the end of the year, to at least to file your income tax. So just making sure that you're keeping up with all those taxes. So then Google Sheets, hire a bookkeeper, Wave, and QuickBooks. All right, so maintain records and pay taxes. Remember, your tax filings are required by law. You don't want to be Bernie Madoff. You don't want to go to jail for not filing your taxes. And just between us, the Arkansas Department of Finance and Administration, they have taken threatening letter writing to a whole new level. If you don't pay your taxes, you'll get a letter from them that is pretty scary, that tells you how much that they potentially could charge you, which is usually an amount that's quite high, and usually pretty scary when you see that up front, if you don't pay your taxes on time. So please make sure that you're at the very least paying your taxes. And at the end of every year, you're going to have to file that. For most of you, it's called Schedule 1040 Schedule C is the form that you'll be filling out, or your accountant will be filling out for you. So make sure you're doing that. And there's some of the taxes: so income tax, sales tax, FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare, and other taxes. All right, so Google Sheets. So this is this is just a simple spreadsheet that I created, that if you're small, or if you're new, or if you don't want to get overly complicated, at the most basic, you could create a spreadsheet, or I could help you create a spreadsheet that looks like this to help you keep track of your finances. And so the way that you can do that is you can just think about all of the incoming money and outgoing money for your business in the form of just big buckets. So column A down there on the left-hand side, where it says sales, expenses, and cash out, and payroll, sales tax, credit card payment. Think about, those are all the big buckets of your business: inventory, rent, utilities. Think about all of the items that you see on your bank statement and on your credit card statement that can all be categorized together, maybe in one lump line. And then you can sum all those together in a month, or just do an approximation. And and then you can just plug those in here. So for instance, payroll. Payroll is made up of potentially a lot of different things. So there's paying yourself, There's paying employees, there's paying 1099 contractors, and then there's paying FICA tax for each and every one of them except for the 1099 contractors, obviously. And so that can be oftentimes, several transactions or multiple transactions. And sometimes if you pay people twice a month, or if you pay people, every 2 weeks, there's a couple months a year that you could be paying them 3 times a month. It's a lot to keep up with. And so instead of, manually entering 10 or 12 transactions per month, what I counsel people to do is just to have a look down through your bank statement to see approximately how much comes out on a regular basis, and then just sort of put that all together, and then just enter it in that line 10 there where it says payroll. And then you're going to do the same thing for the rest of those amounts down there as well. The big credit card payment, most people put all of their business expenses. So I'm looking at line 12 where it says credit card payment. They put most of their business expenses on a credit card nowadays. And so instead of going into Google Sheets and recording every single transaction that you put on your credit card, usually what I find is, the easiest to do, especially in the beginning, just to look at what you spent for the whole month or whatever your statement balance is, and just enter that there and then just pay the whole thing off. And so instead of having to, record 50 to 100 credit card transactions all individually, if you don't have bookkeeping software, you can just lump those together in one payment called credit card payment. And then if you've got inventory that you're paying for, your rent, your utilities, sales, and marketing, pretty basic. I find that these, what is it, basically 7 categories that I've got outlined here will cover almost every expense for almost every business that I work with. And this is not an intimidating looking spreadsheet. It does take quite a bit of manual entry, but no more manual entry than you'd be doing in something like Wave or QuickBooks. And so, it just takes the time for you to do some calculations and then enter things in. And then up at the top where it says in row 7, it says sales. All you'll do there every month is just look at, what your sales are from your point of sale service provider, whether that's, Square or Shopify, or if it's cash or checks or whatever it might be that are coming through your bank statement. And then you'll just record that there. And so you'll see in column B and column C for January, I've got, PROJ, that stands for projected. And then I've got ACT in column C, which stands for actual. So I've got projected compared to actual. What I like people to do is just create a basic budget or just a basic projection, about 6 months out. And so you can see here what I did under sales. I just projected $25,000 in sales. And then in the next column, once I knew what my actual was, I just plugged in the actual, gave me $22,000. And then down there at the bottom on row 20, you can see the net. Basically, it's net cash is what this is looking at. So net income of cash or net incoming cash of $5,000 projected, and then I have 4,000 actual. And so at a very basic level, this will help you keep track of your business if you don't want to do formal bookkeeping in something like Wave or hire a bookkeeper or hire an accountant. And then when it comes tax time to file your taxes and you pay an accountant or you try to do it yourself and you're going to look at that Schedule 1040C to file your taxes, that's basically an income statement. You can just take these amounts and transfer it straight over to your tax return for the most part. And there's going to be categories on your tax return, and sometimes it's helpful to match these categories through that 1040 Schedule C tax return. It makes it even a little bit quicker if you want to do that. It makes filing your taxes a little bit easier. So if you want help with this, just feel free to give me a call. But this is what I would say is beyond just keeping your records, but actually starting to record things and do some analysis and do some planning and do some more fine-tuned record keeping. This would be the next step before Wave or QuickBooks or hiring a bookkeeper. All right. So the next step would be hiring a bookkeeper, and I would recommend. Keep in mind, you don't have to hire a CPA or an accounting firm to get a bookkeeper. There's a lot of bookkeeping services out there where all they do is do bookkeeping. They cost anywhere from $30 to $90 an hour for an independent bookkeeper who just works on their own or has worked as part of a company who only does bookkeeping. If they're working at a firm, usually that individual is going to be making between probably more like $25 and $40 an hour, but $30 to $40 an hour is kind of a good rate. A lot of it just depends on the amount of work that you're going to have them do and the level of experience that you have. If you're a really small company and you've only got a couple hundred transactions a month, you're not going to be paying a whole lot of money. But if you're, a larger company, doing, $1 million or more in sales per year, It is going to be quite a bit more expensive for you, but it's more than worth it. So just keep in mind, you don't have to go hire a CPA when you Google search trying to find a bookkeeper. You can Google search accounting firm or CPA, but I would also suggest in Googling independent bookkeepers in Northwest Arkansas. And there's a couple, or you can even do a nationwide search. I've worked with a couple of companies that have bookkeepers that work for bookkeeping companies. The most recent one, the company was based out of Chicago, but the actual bookkeeper herself was based in Portland, Oregon. So she was a totally remote work from home worker that did all of that client's books for him. And she did a really great job. And it was a really good rate as well. So what are some of the bookkeeper services that they can provide you? So they can do a basic QuickBooks setup or a basic Wave setup if that's what you're using. Some people ask me about Zero a lot. That's another service they can do. Zero typically too. QuickBooks and Wave are just sort of the most prolific because QuickBooks has been around the longest and it's an American-based company, and then Wave is free, even though it's a newer company. Zero, I believe, was originally founded in Australia, is where I think it came out of. I could be wrong on that, but it wasn't American, I don't believe, and it's also more recent. They'll do your transaction recording for you. They'll often run your payroll for you, and then they will generate your financial reports, which is that history book that we've been talking about, your balance sheet, statement of cash flows, and your income statement. If you hire an accountant or a CPA, they're usually going to work at a firm. They're going to have themselves and usually one or two other people working with them. They can be small or they can be extremely large. A small accounting firm here in town that I like a whole lot is called Still Point Accounting. Going to give Mandy and Lauren a shout out there. They've been really great for some of our smaller ASBTDC clients. And then a larger one is called Landmark, and they're based out of Fort Smith, but they also have an office in Rogers. They're a great firm as well. They're a little bit larger, but even if you're a small business, they would love to talk to you. And they are going to range both Still Point, Landmark size firms. It doesn't really matter. For their full suite of services, they're going to start about $400 a month, and then they're going to go up, over, thousands of dollars per month, just depending on the size of your business and the complexity and how much you have them doing. What is the accountant going to be doing? Everything that the bookkeeper does, plus they're going to set you up, and they're also going to do some advising. They're going to manage your taxes and tax strategy, and they're going to do some basic analysis and give you some feedback. The big value add that I believe accountants can really give a company is that whereas a bookkeeper is just going to have some basic knowledge and basic understanding about how to set you up in your bookkeeping software, an accountant is going to be able to set up your books in a way that provides you the information that you really, really need. Whereas the bookkeeper, they're going to kind of follow just a basic template that's not very customized to you and to your business. But when you look at that, what the bookkeeper gives you, without that specific to you setup, the information that you're going to get is going to be good, but you're not going to be able to glean as much insight out of it than if you would hire an accountant who's going to be able to set up your bookkeeping system and your reporting system in a way that is able to give you the information that is most highly valuable to you. That's usually the biggest difference. So you're getting a quality of information and a quality of insight that is significantly higher than what most bookkeepers are able to provide by hiring a CPA firm or hiring an accountant. They're also going to help you a lot with taxes and tax strategy. It's an add-on service, but usually they can save you a whole lot of money through helping you through your tax planning. And then they're also going to provide you some basic consulting through some basic analysis and feedback. They also provide other services such as auditing, business valuation. And if you're purchasing a business, they can help you do a called the quality of earnings study sometimes on that. And they are often also involved in mergers and acquisitions. So the biggest question that I always get from people at the end of this is, do I need a bookkeeper and an accountant? In most cases, the answer is going to be yes. Usually when you're starting to make money, you need to be focused on making money, and one of the biggest return on investment decisions that you can make is hiring a bookkeeper and accountant to take all of that off your plate. Because if you have no experience in it, if you've never done it before, it's extremely time consuming And generally, what happens for most people, the first couple of months, they're really motivated to do it. But then, you know, other priorities just kind of happen or other opportunities happen that they feel like they need to take advantage of. And so, usually by month two or month three or month four, I would say, honestly, 99% of the people that I work with who start off doing their own books are ready to pass it off to a bookkeeper or an accountant. And even though it is a little bit of money up front, I promise you it will be more than worth it if you find a great match with a good bookkeeper and with a good accountant. And I can help you do that. So, next to hiring a bookkeeper and accountant, if you still want to do it yourself, there is a free service out there called Wave that you can use. And then you can also use QuickBooks. So, Wave is good because it's free, but the reporting options in it are limited and just kind of what you can see. You can see the very basics of what you need to see. But like with any free service, the options are going to be limited, but it is going to give you what you at a very basic level, what you need. And then QuickBooks is inexpensive. It's fully featured. It's going to do everything that you want it to do, but it is complicated. And my honest opinion, after working with a lot of clients and QuickBooks itself for a long time, is that um, you can sort of use it on two levels. One, the base level is that some entrepreneurs who are willing to spend the time to learn it, they can use it. It is possible, but on another level, without having some background in bookkeeping or accounting, the information that you're going to wind up getting out of it is either going to be incorrect or insufficient for you to be able to utilize it beyond being able to file your taxes. So you'll be able to file your taxes, and that's great. But other than that, really, you'll kind of only be able to understand what your sales are, and the rest of the information is somewhat usable, but it's not nearly as good as you need it to be in order to make some really key decisions. And as soon as you go to apply for a loan or look for investors or try to expand or try to figure out what's wrong in your business, the information that beginning bookkeepers or beginning entrepreneurs have put in there is just not sufficient to do a great job at helping us make decisions. And so I wind up usually going in and looking at a lot of raw data and spending a lot of time with entrepreneurs to really find out what the information is outside of QuickBooks. So it's there and it's great and it is usable. But in order to be able to make the best decisions possible to create the most accurate, most useful history book possible, my recommendation is always to hire a bookkeeper and accountant and to use and to also use some of the software in combination. And lastly, I would just also say get in touch with us at the ASBTDC. We can review whatever system you've come up with, or we can just review your business and we can recommend a system that's going to be, a good fit for you at the stage that you're at. Because not everybody, truthfully, not everybody needs to hire a bookkeeper. Not everybody needs to use QuickBooks. But those cases are generally all reserved for the smallest, newest companies. Generally, as soon as you start to get a little bit complex or a little bit big, it's time to go ahead and hire that bookkeeper or that accountant. And so we can make recommendations to you based on that. And we can also look at your existing system, whatever you've got set up, and we can help you adjust it in order to be able to provide you the information that you want a little bit more quickly. So it's kind of like looking at a history book that's got no chapters, no year divisions, no summary statements, no headings. And you kind of open it up and you're just looking at all this information and it's not well organized and you can't find what you're actually looking for to make a decision. And what I can do is help you come in and say, okay, if we organize it this way, we do it this way, then the next time you go to that 1,000-page history book, you know exactly what page you're looking for to find the information that you want so you can make the decision that you need to make. And we can help you do that and love doing that every day. So what are your next steps after this webinar? So if you want to talk about your accounting and bookkeeping situation and getting set up, or maybe improving it, or what to do moving forward, or maybe your accountant's frustrating you and you need to find a new one and you need some help, you're not sure what to do, just email me. My email was at the beginning of the presentation. It's sl072@uark.edu. I would love to have a chat with you. Next step would be just if you don't want to email me or don't have time to email, or if that's just not right for you right now, just review your own situation and ask yourself, do I know how much money is coming into my business every month and where it's coming from? Do I know how much I'm spending on my key buckets every single month? Do I know how much I'm spending on inventory? Do I know how much I'm spending on payroll? Do I know how much I'm spending on rent and utilities? Am I paying all of the taxes that I need to pay? And if you don't know the answers to those questions, today is the day that it's time to go and find out if and how to find that information for yourself so you can run your business a little bit better. Number three, after you review your situation, maybe even after you email me, it's time to make a decision about what accounting and bookkeeping system you want to implement. Do you just want to do it yourself? Do you just need to be managing your records and paying your taxes? Is it time to implement a bookkeeping system like QuickBooks or Wave or Xero? Or is it time to hire an accountant or time to hire a bookkeeper? But that decision time is now for sure. And just keep in mind, if you get overwhelmed, that doing something is always better than doing nothing. So with that, appreciate you guys being here, and I would love to take some questions. You can put them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and I've got two in the Q&A box. I'm going to go ahead and answer now. The first question is, what are cost-saving bookkeeping resources we can utilize, QuickBooks, etc.? So Wave is a free resource that you can go out there and use, and then Google Sheets is also free to use for anybody. So if you want to do that, I can help you get set up with Google Sheets. I'm less familiar with Wave. I just haven't used it personally yet, but we do have some clients who use it. But that is free. And then QuickBooks does have some really affordable, cheap options. Next question, if you're pre-revenue, do you need to file anything? So that's a great question. So if you have gone to the Secretary of State website, or if you've had somebody file an LLC for you, you do need to file a tax return for that LLC, even if you don't have any sales, and even if you don't have any new profits. Additionally, if you have gone to the Arkansas Taxpayer Access Point website and you've registered for a business sales tax ID, you do need to be filing that tax form, that sales tax form every single month, even if you don't have any sales. So the answer is, if you have registered an LLC or if you have registered for a sales tax number, you do need to be filing those forms every single month. However, if you're a sole proprietor and you haven't registered an LLC, you don't necessarily have to do those same filings. However, you do need to keep track of the money that you're collecting from your sales, because you're going to be required to report that on your year-end tax form. And you may also be potentially required to file quarterly estimated income taxes as well. And your tax accountant can help you answer those questions. All right, next question. Can you share the actual versus projected spreadsheet from your presentation or one like it? Sure, if you want to get in touch with me, just shoot me an email and I will share that over to you. And I'd be happy to do that, but I do want you to get in touch with me first through email. That is sl072@uark.edu. All right, next question. Is there really money for businesses under the CARES Act, employee retention credit up to $26,000 per employee? So I do know that the employee retention tax credit is a real thing. I don't know what the particulars are of it. Honestly, I thought that it had expired, but it seems like it's still sort of ongoing. But what that tax credit is for an employer having kept employees employed during the pandemic instead of laying them off or letting them go. But again, I'm not a tax accountant, and so it's not something I specialize in. So and because of liability purposes, we're not allowed to give like legal advice or actual tax advice to people. So what I am required to do is guide you and direct you to your tax accountant or your CPA. But I do believe that it is at least worth you looking into, especially if you were open during the pandemic. All right. So that is all I've got for you guys. Those are the 4 questions that I had. If anybody else has got some additional questions, I'll stay on for 2 or 3 more minutes to answer some questions that you might have. But otherwise, thank you guys for being here. This will be posted up on our website soon. Sometimes it's same day, sometimes it's next week. It just kind of depends on how busy things are here. But thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording. And if you want to ask another question, feel free to put that in the chat box or in the Q&A.